All right, welcome in. Tonight's Thursday night. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. I'm in with Imam Michael Hameen.
Now, wait a minute. Reverend Al doesn't wear his reverend when he's on air.
You don't want me to call you Reverend Hameen.
No, just take the Imam hat.
All right, well, I'm in with Michael Hameen, and I was here with Curtis Bell, but he got some personal issues to deal with. All right, tonight's, as we said, Thursday night, and you're listening to Knowledge is Power. Knowledge is Power is brought to you by the Committee to Develop Birmingham. We've got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on in the city of Birmingham and the county of Jefferson.
Yes.
And
yes, it is.
But before we get started, I like to always address our regular listeners who are dutifully trying to make their way home in rush hour traffic. And I encourage you to put the cell phone down. We always allow you to turn the radio up. Keep both hands on the wheel and drive as safely as you can so that you might arrive home to those who are eagerly anticipating your presence. And for those of you who are already home, you can turn the radio up as the family sits around the dinner table, because we want the young people, the children, to have an opportunity to, at the very least, listen, and should they be so moved, to participate in what we like to call grown folks conversation.
Listening means a whole lot.
Well, you learn through listening, young people, so we encourage you to listen and to learn. There are a lot of things going on in this world, and I know that you're a part of this misdirected education system that keeps telling you that you need to speak up and express yourself, even before you know what you're talking about. So you might want to spend a little time listening to gather your thoughts, and we certainly encourage you, if you've got a valid comment or thought that you want to contribute, to please do so. But at these formative years in your life, try to listen more than you talk. You'd be surprised at how that'll help you down the road. Michael?
Yes, sir.
There is so much going on in the city of Birmingham and the county of Jefferson that it is becoming a task now picking the subjects that we're going to address on this program, and it's becoming even more of a task as we try to refine our product. You know now that not only are we streaming live on the World Wide Web, but we are rebroadcast on YouTube and Facebook. So Curtis Bell is becoming a celebrity all over the place these days.
You heard?
And so as we move forward, I want to inform our audience that you will begin to notice some changes in the program. We're in the process of getting producers and executive producers to line up individuals to contribute to the conversation. A lot of times we have these professional callers who, never mind what we're talking about, they want to call in and talk about what they want to talk about.
That's the power of media.
Yeah, so we've gotten some calls from YouTube listeners from various parts of the country who have offered suggestions. They've enjoyed the program, but they've been somewhat annoyed by callers who don't stay on the script, or callers who seem to be talking about another place and time, another planet and time, or whatever. So as we progress with the program, audience, we certainly want to ask you to bear with us. We started this as a kitchen table concept.
Town hall meeting.
Yeah, it was just our intent to try to get as much truth and as much information out to you as possible. And we really, 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 really appreciate the response that we're getting from you. More and more we find out that you are listening, and with your calls and emails and responses to the program, then it enhances our sense of responsibility. So our burden to make sure that the information that we impart over these airways is truly knowledge that you can use. We want to hold true to our name, and we want you to begin to act upon the new knowledge that you gain from this program, because knowledge is only power when you act upon it. So with that, we go into the program. I guess the biggest news story of the day is the fact that the Birmingham News fired 60% of their reporters.
Is that what you call downsizing?
It might be going out of business. But anyway, they fired 60%. And in that group were people that I know, very experienced reporters. I think Eddie Lard from the editorial board, Cheryl Wheeler Stewart, who was deputy editor for the city desk, Roy Williams, who did the business news. And I want to, just say a few words to those three in particular, because I followed them over the years. I recognize their skill and their professionalism. And now that you've been liberated,
freed, yes.
Yes, I would hope that you would take your experience and your talent and use it now freely to better inform the community. If you followed this program, we've had several situations where we have disagreed with the editorial stance of the Birmingham News. It has generally been slanted. And just maybe, God works. God works these things. And I want to say to those three individuals, if you're listening, that, and by no means feel like, this is an end. This is truly a beginning. This is an opportunity for you to truly find your mission, to truly use your skills, because you're in a city that is 70 to 80% black, that for years has not been able to enjoy the skills that you have unrestricted. And I know that, everything that you write is edited and it is designed to fit the format that your employer has in mind.
I've always felt that it's important how you focus your intentions, but underlying all that's taking place here in Jefferson County and in Birmingham, there's a Pulitzer Prize story, and books are possibilities. But I knew that the people who could do it were being held back.
Yeah, and so now they're free. And certainly I would ask our listening audience, and I was intending to talk to Jesse Lewis. I hadn't had a chance to talk to him, but certainly this might be an opportunity for us to go out and raise some equity capital to invest in the Birmingham Times if Jesse is so inclined. The Birmingham News is going to cut down to 3 days a week. They're going to rely on electronic transmissions, which means they're going to miss a large part of our audience, and they're going to miss a large part of the general audience. So it's an opportunity.
There's revenue to be had.
There's revenue to be had,
yeah.
And there are truths to be told.
Absolutely.
I was reading an article not long ago where just went straight out of my head.
Just go straight ahead and you'll catch up with it.
Yeah, well, the brother who was the editor of the Birmingham World, his brother.
Jackson.
Yeah, ML.
Yeah.
Thank you. His brother was in town asking the city council to recognize his contributions.
I saw that.
Yeah, well, ML was a true journalist. I was fortunate to be able to read some of his editorials and some of his reporting, and he was a true journalist. He was a brave, pioneering man,
forerunner,
who dared to tell the truth and to use his journalistic skills at a time when black men dare not, speak up or let the emperor know that he was naked.
Yeah,
Emil Jackson was one who took his professional oath as a journalist seriously and informed our people. And I think it is time for Eddie, Cheryl, and Roy to look at that as an opportunity to inform our people. I can assure you that there is money to be made in our community. I was talking with Michael earlier about a DVD that I got from Commissioner Bowman, and the DVD was entitled "What Black Men Think," and it was certainly refreshing. I started to say it was eye-opening, but what they said were things that I knew. But it was refreshing to see that there were so many black men out there who were conscious and who recognized that what we were dealing with, the media, is such a powerful thing, and the newspaper has been at the forefront of this thing with the media, and it is, it is imperative that we as a people begin to recognize how we are manipulated through the use of the media.
They're not going to believe you. You have to show them some reference from
that's
White
not,
Daddy.
That's not my job is to tell them. I've got to go out and preach.
Excuse me, y'all. I'm just trying to emphasize a point. No disrespect meant.
Well, but and I know what you're saying is that, and that's part of what they talk about in this DVD about what black men think, is that you are predisposed to believe what they say as opposed to what I say. So they can tell you that there is a problem, and if you accept the fact or you accept their statements that there is a problem, then you also accept their solution.
That's right.
So, if you buy the problem, you buy their solution. Michael and I were talking earlier, and these are some things that I want to point out to you about how media controls your thought processes. And one of the questions that I posed to Michael and Curtis, I said, to your knowledge, are there more young black men in jail or in college?
And to show you how susceptible Michael is, I said in jail.
And what did you say, Curtis?
I said in jail.
So, in watching this DVD, they went around the country asking young people, old people, male people, female people, ask everybody. And the unanimous response was that there are more young black men in jail. But the fact of the matter is that there are more young black men in college. But we readily accept the negative.
And what did I ask you? Can it be documented?
It can be documented.
And you took me to the dominant country government census.
Well, that's where, and that's another problem.
Yes.
But it was the analysis that was done by our people.
Yes.
That brought forth the fact. Now we know that the dominant cultures, government, census, well, what they do is fairly accurate.
Yeah, but they minimalize.
How it's interpreted
exactly
is another matter.
Yeah.
And see, that's the problem, is that we don't interpret it.
Our own independent interpretation.
Thank you. And so what these guys did was go in and analyze the information. And they found out that statistically, more young black men go to college. But we are so ready to buy into the negative.
Yes.
We are so ready to believe that, all our young people are criminals.
The boy must have done something.
He must have done something.
That's why the police stopped him.
And they go further to point out that the dominant culture uses the law to entrap and enslave. They create this industry, this prison industry.
Absolutely.
And certainly we buy into it.
Yeah.
Put them in jail. They must have done something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so we hurt ourselves by buying into the lie, and we perpetuate the lie, and so we develop these negative stereotypes in our mind about ourselves. Certainly I can't go shop at a black grocery store. They don't have that good stuff. The white folk got all the good stuff. So, so now that hurts us economically. You can't go buy a car from a black man because, he's just trying to trick you out your money. So you go let the white folks trick you out your money. So all of these negative things that the media imprints on our minds, we react upon or we act upon. And so we are self-defeating because of our lack of knowledge and lack of understanding.
That's true.
Of what's going on. There were several census statistics that they attacked, but the one that was most glaring to me was that what is the greatest killer of black people? And you get all of the responses. Well, you get high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes. AIDS was very heavily hit upon. Most of the young people were convinced that AIDS was the number one killer, and then there was cancer. Well, what these brothers point out was that all of these things, are problems, and if you recognize them as problems, then the government presents you with a solution, and the solution is always something that you have to buy. So therefore, your tax dollars go into cancer and AIDS and diabetes, and they're all businesses.
That's true.
Yeah. The number one killer of black people is abortion. We abort.
I never would have thought that.
We abort 3 times, almost 4 times, as many babies as are killed by AIDS and cancer and heart disease and diabetes. So, again now, the responsibility falls upon us because the media has sold to our people that abortion is a legitimate form of birth control. And I think that escalates into a greater problem in that it desensitizes us to life itself.
Disrespect for life.
Yes. So as we begin to devalue life, well, if you can kill it in the womb, you can kill it in the street. So at that point, we become endangered by our own people because they read the newspaper, they watch the television, and they get these reports about how dangerous we are, how promiscuous we are, how disease-ridden we are, and we buy into that, and we react negatively against ourselves. One of the things, or the central thing that kept coming out in all of this was that this was not true 40 years ago. In the passage of the Civil Rights Act, we were exposed to all of the negative things that the dominant culture had to offer. We were once
insulated.
Not only were we insulated, but the church and its moral teachings were a compass.
That's right.
For us. But once the civil barriers were broken down, we tended to assimilate to the lower echelon of the dominant culture, the free drugs, the free sex, and so now all of a sudden all of these problems beset our community. When we were legally illegal in this country, we had a moral compass. The way we were able to demand our rights within a civil society was through our process of taking the moral high ground.
That's right.
Yeah. They did everything they could to Dr. King, but they knew that he was right. And as long as we had right on our side, then we were destined to be victorious in that battle.
We lost our Joseph model. I remember you talking about months ago about where do you fit into the story.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read this man's book, but there's a man who wrote a book about that, in terms of, seeing yourself within the script and scripture.
That's the basic part of this. This guy says that, once we've had this conversation, and I'm going to try to get some groups together to show them the video and so forth, but once we've had this conversation, this guy says that out of every 10 people who see it, 5 people are not going to do anything. They're just going to ignore it.
Yeah.
3 people might give it some thought, but they're not going to do anything upon it. 1 person will take it very seriously, but not act upon it.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 10, only 1 will decide to develop a strategy to act, to correct what he has learned to be a wrong. So therein lies our problem.
Well, I see it as a challenge because if we would just, you mentioned the compass, the moral compass, and what I saw in Dr. King and others was this Joseph model, that there was a time when we were worthy to lead morally in this country as a group. And what I'm seeing now is that though we've gotten away from it, historically we're right in line because it's never taken everybody. It's always the few that make the changes. So stop looking for everybody, and if you got 1 or 2, let's go.
Well, and that's where we are now.
Let's go.
We're trying to recruit the 1 or 2
Let's go.
so that we can go. And we started this conversation talking about the fact that the Birmingham News has cut over 60% of their reporting staff. And we're trying to encourage, specifically those 3 individuals who are high-ranking employees of the Birmingham News, to utilize your skills, your chosen profession, utilize it to help your people. And I can assure you that if you take that moral high ground, that if you decide that, and you pray about it, you talk to your God, but you tell your God that now that you are liberated, now that you are free, that you're going to step out on faith and use your skills and your talent to benefit, to enlighten, to uplift your people. If you will do that, I will assure you that there will never be a day or never be a year that you don't make at least, if not more, money than whatever it was you were selling your time for down at the Birmingham News. Your people will appreciate your talent and your skills. And if you would endeavor to inform, to enlighten, to uplift your people, that you will be rewarded beyond your imagination.
And even if it's less, you're making money doing something you want to do, and you don't have the shackles on you.
Well, but it will never be less. I tell people all the time that, I spent a little over 10 years, as a banker in the corporate world. And when I realized how they were cheating and stealing from my people, I said, I will not participate in this. I went to my daddy and I told him, I said, I'm going out on my own. Boy, you leaving that good job? Yep, I'm leaving that good job because I cannot sit here and watch these people steal from my people any longer. And God has been so good that there has never been a year, in my worst year, I never made less than what I was making at the bank.
but you had a good wife with you.
Oh, shit, I was blessed. I was blessed beyond millions, and, a good wife and a good family. God has, and that's what I'm saying to these folk at the Birmingham News. Yeah. Step out on your faith, do what you believe to be right, and I will assure you that you will be blessed beyond your imagination. Yeah. All right, Curtis is signaling that we're coming up on the break. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Always know that Knowledge is Power is brought to you by the Committee to Develop Birmingham. Committee meets on the third Saturday of every month, and I think that's this Saturday.
It is.
From 9 until 11 at the 5 Points West Library, located just across from the Crossplex in beautiful downtown 5 Points West. So you've got all reasons in the world to come to 5 Points West. Spend your money out here with people who appreciate it. Come by and take your picture in front of WATV.
Y'all come down.
And Curtis will be out to autograph. He'll have his pictures and he'll autograph them for you. So you can even take a picture with Curtis Bell. You'll be famous for the rest of your life. All right, we'll be back after the break.
The views and opinions expressed on this program by the talk show host, guests, or callers do not necessarily represent the opinion of 900 Gold WATV, its sponsors, staff, management, or affiliates.
Okay, welcome back. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Always know that Knowledge is Power is brought to you by the Committee to Develop Birmingham. Committee meets on the third Saturday of every month, and this Saturday is the third Saturday. So we encourage all of you to come out and join with like-minded individuals who want to see a better Birmingham. Thursday night, I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. I'm in with Michael Hameen and the ever-rising star, Curtis Bell.
In the house.
Okay, we're also being visited by, C.C. Scott. C.C., how you doing?
All right, how you doing?
All right, Joe.
Curtis, the busiest man in Alabama. Oh, okay. I mean, we didn't say what he's busy from. We just say he's busy.
Yeah, well, you just jealous. Curtis is a celebrity. That's what it is. You just jealous. All right. Anyway, I want to remind our audience that not only are we streaming live over the internet, we're available at least by midnight on YouTube and Facebook. We encourage you to send in your comments, your critiques, and if there's something that you want us to address, just let us know.
I think we're working our way to the upgrade.
Yeah, well, we'll submit it to the production people, and we'll see what comes back. During the break, Michael and I were talking, and Michael is sort of my other conscience. We sit here and we bounce things off of each other, and we have intense discussions during the break. A lot of that stuff we wish you could hear, but once we go back on the air, then we've moved on to something else. One of these days we're going to play our outtakes.
But we're going to have to edit the cuss words that I use sometimes.
Yeah, you're a minister. I know you don't cuss.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I want to talk, Michael. I got an email from one of my producers, pointed out to me that Mayor Bell had been on the radio talking about an opportunity or a possibility that Birmingham might acquire an NBA team. I think a lot of you who follow the NBA recognize that I don't think Oklahoma City is as big as Birmingham.
No.
Yeah. But Oklahoma City has an NBA team that is now in the finals of the playoff. And so people all over the world
are looking at
Oklahoma City, those who are interested in basketball. So, Mayor Bell talked about the possibilities. And then, I went to AL.com and printed out the internet conversations. And we had about 10 pages of comments. And you have never, well, yes, you have. I take that back. But it never ceases to amaze me at the amount of negativity that comes particularly out of our white community. They don't want to see anything happen. If black folks are in charge of it, they question its merit, they question its validity, they question. And I was reminded that this deep-seated negative attitude, this retarded approach to life has been present in Birmingham almost since its beginning. It's amazing to me how it became the magic city and produced so many negative, backwards thinking people.
Because there's a social psychology that many people don't understand on how you keep people socially attached to those kind of ideas that will hold you back. There's a psychology to it that you have to perpetuate. Whatever you think of, young white poor boy, you'll always be better than that N-word.
Oh, well, anyway, and the thought that those people might be presenting progressive ideas that would benefit us all, never mind.
It doesn't meet the social profile. They were labeled being less than, and that's where you got to keep them.
So if progressive ideas don't come from white people, then they just don't fly.
So you might have to slip them to one of your white friends.
Well, you bring me to a point that I wanted to make about a conversation that I had with then Mayor Richard Arrington. It might have been in the latter stages of his first term or the early stages of his second term, but I was trying to encourage him that when you came up with these innovative, progressive concepts that would create jobs and economic growth and development within the city of Birmingham, that you can't go talk to the white establishment about these things, not the white establishment here in Birmingham or in Jefferson County. Maybe we need to go talk to some white people from New York, or some white people from Europe or Germany, or some people who don't come to the game with any predisposed negative dispositions, or people who come to the game with some false concepts of their role within society. I was telling him about a story that had been repeated to me some years ago about the west coast of this country, when the fishermen would go out every day out of San Francisco. They would go out to catch their fish, and they would process the fish on the way back, meaning that the guts and the heads and so forth would be cut off, and they threw them in the ocean. Well, if you've ever been out on the coast, you know that these gulls follow these ships. There are literally hundreds, maybe even 1,000 gulls following a fishing ship, coming back in because they know they're going to throw out this residue fish, and so they'd follow the boats and they would eat the residue. Well, these ships could capture so many fish that it was more residue than the gulls could eat. So eventually, the sunbathers on the beach would be bothered by fish heads washing ashore.
Oh.
And so they became offended, and they notified the environmental people that these fish heads were rotting in the sun on the beach, and the smell was such, and they couldn't sunbathe and so forth. So the EPA said, stop. You have to wait till you get to shore and process the fish on shore in your processing plants. Well, once that happened, the gulls didn't get the memo. So you got generations of gulls now who knew that dinner came behind the ship. And so they go out following the ship, and there's no dinner. Well, that goes on for a little while, and all of a sudden now you got dead gulls washing up on the shore because they've starved to death because the ship is no longer disposing of the fish parts so that they could eat. So now EPA with good intentions has created another bad circumstance. Seagulls are starving to death.
Uh-huh.
So, well, what do? Seagulls are born to fish. That's what they do. You've seen them. They fly around and they dive in the water and they catch fish. So what they had to do was go to the East Coast off of Massachusetts, and they had to capture some gulls that were still in their natural state. Once they captured these gulls, then they brought them to the West Coast so that they could teach the West Coast seagulls to do what they should naturally do, and that is fish for themselves. And there's a story in that for us as a people, too, about doing for yourself. But once they brought the gulls in from the east and integrated those gulls in with the West Coast gulls, then they began to correct the problem, because seagulls then, in the next generation, grew up following seagulls who knew how to do those things that seagulls do. So what we have to do here in Birmingham or even in Alabama is that we've got to integrate into this community people who understand what is necessary for us to do to create a viable economy, what is necessary for us to do to attract capital into our community, and people who recognize that capital does not, in its natural form, discriminate against anybody based on how they look. Even the communist Chinese have embraced capital and capitalism. Yeah. The Russians have embraced capital and capitalism. But for us here in Birmingham and in Jefferson County, those individuals who control the bulk of the capital refuse to embrace us. I mean, we have no shortage of economic development ideas and concepts, of job-creating ideas and concepts. The problem that we have is that we don't have access to capital. And those individuals who do control the capital don't think that we should have access to capital, because should we get access to capital, then that diminishes their ability to control us and our actions. So my suggestion to then Mayor Arrington was that, well, let's get some new white people. Yeah. There are a lot of white people around if you just got to deal with them, but there are a lot of black people around who have capital. And the key to economic development and job creation is, in fact, access to capital. So if those people in the city of Birmingham and the county of Jefferson have some skewed view that access, utilization, manipulation of capital is an exclusive domain to Caucasians, then we need to stop even bothering with them and go ahead and find capital in other areas, so that if we, who make up 75-80% of the population, if we want an NBA team, then let's find the investment capital to make that happen. Let's also find the investment capital to allow us to create the kind of economy and the kind of industry here that will allow us to create jobs for our citizens that will afford them the amount of disposable income necessary for them to purchase a ticket, or at least a season ticket, if not a single ticket to a game.
So if you can't change the people, change the people.
Exactly. And that's what we've got to look at. If the corporations within the city of Birmingham are retarding the growth, then we need to solicit other corporations, whether they be domestic or foreign. We are an international or global economy. We have to recognize that we are an integral part. We are an integral part of the global economy. There are all kinds of resources that we control that would make an attractive investment for equity investors from anywhere in the world. And so we've got to broaden our horizons. I mean, we have tried Birmingham Business Alliance and Birmingham Chamber of Commerce before that. We have tried daily. We have done everything that we could do to try to work with y'all to create jobs and economic opportunity, to try to grow this metropolis, and try to do it regardless of race or ethnicity. That has not been a concern of ours.
Let the record show.
But it's always been a concern of yours. So now we've run out of patience. If you're not going to cooperate with the mayor, and if you're not going to invest in the city, if you're going to continue this corrupt foolishness that's going on in Jefferson County, that's going to force our children to have to leave here to go find employment that can afford them the life that they desire, then we need to stop dealing with y'all.
Let them go back to the cave, and we'll move on, because they're really committed economic suicide. They're acting like dinosaurs in this kind of economic climate, worldwide, global, money resources. It's just it's just time for the managers to wake up.
Yeah, and we need to encourage those people who represent us to recognize that at the next board meeting, we're going to bring it up, that we need to find new sources of capital. We need to look for new equity partners. If these people who have the resources, and when I come back after the hour, I'm going to talk about the sewer system. I'm going to tell you how they got a lot of the resources that they got. They stole them. But we're going to talk about that. But we have to begin to think beyond them. We have the resources and the responsibility. And one thing that I want to point out to you, that those of you in our audience and in our community, if you are expecting, if you are anticipating that these people who have oppressed, tricked, hoodwinked, boondoggled you since the beginning of this community to someday wake up and to deliver you into this new day, then I simply say to you, if you can find anywhere in history where the person who oppresses you has liberated you, then you continue in that. But there is no place, and if you don't do it for yourself, if you don't utilize the resources that you control to liberate yourself, then you cannot expect any oppressor to wake up one morning and decide that he is going to liberate you. It is all your responsibility.
Wake up, Birmingham.
All right, we're at the top of the hour. We're coming up on the break. When we come back, we've got a special guest in the house that we want to talk to, the most worshipful Grand Master. And last week I talked about the need for our mystic and fraternal and church, all of them, to step up to their responsibility. Because we have resources within our community. One of the things that the media keeps portraying us as being poor. Black people in this country earn and spend hundreds of billions of dollars every year. But because we have been tricked into believing that we ourselves are a bad investment, we take our money elsewhere. Well, when we come back, we're going to ask our special guests about how we begin to utilize those resources, how we take what we have, we put it in our community, and we make it work for us. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night. I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. We'll be back after the break.
The views and opinions expressed on this program by the talk show host, guests, or callers do not necessarily represent the opinion of 900 Gold WATV, its sponsors, staff, management, or affiliates.
WATV, Birmingham. We are the new 900 Gold WATV.
All right, welcome back. I am coming to feel that the people of ill will have used time much more effectively than the people of goodwill. We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic words and actions of bad people, but for the appalling silence of good people. We must come to see that human progress never rolls on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through tireless efforts and persistent work of men willing to do and to be co-workers with their God. And without this hard work, time itself will become our enemy and allies of the forces of social stagnation. We must use time creatively and forever realize that the time is always ripe to do right. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Always know that Knowledge is Power is brought to you by the Committee to Develop Birmingham. Tonight's Thursday night. I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. I'm in with Michael Hameen, the great Curtis Bell, and we have in-house a special guest. When we talked last week, we talked about the need to engage all of our institutions in a new way of thinking, to embrace this opportunity that we have to stand up as men and women and do for ourselves. Because you see, no matter what your endeavor, what your wish, what your ambition, what your dream, if you don't have control of yourself, if you are dependent upon someone else to deliver you, then you're going to be no better off in the end than you were in the beginning. You have to control your own destiny. And if you good people continue to sit silently while you witness what is going on in our community? Who are you going to blame? We have an opportunity in Birmingham. The Birmingham News is closing down. We are beginning to see for ourselves the reality of existence here in this city and in this county. And you need to recognize that the hope and the future of this county, of this region, lies with you. You are faced with a tremendous challenge and a tremendous opportunity. And I'm going to tell you this. When life presents you with a moment to matter, and you turn away, I don't care if you live to be 90 years old. You died the moment that you refused to step up and deal with that moment that mattered. This is a significant time in our history. All of you who are comfortable in your existence or your subsistence, now is the time for good people to step up. You need to use your money to invest in your future, in your children's future. You need to recognize that here in Birmingham, I'm told that there are approximately 3,000 churches that collect money every Sunday and deliver it downtown. But yet, we can't get investment capital in our community. When the storm comes through, we wait on Habitat for Humanity or U.S. Steel or some other forces to come back in and restore our community. And we take our money and we build tabernacles. I'm not a biblical scholar, but I do know that when Jesus came into his own, he railed against people worshiping in and worshiping these temples. When you can generate $8 to $10 to $15 million to build a tabernacle and refuse to build a house, when you can raise $8 to $10 to $15 million and 30% of your sons and daughters can't find a job, when you can go out and beseech and beg other people to give you a grocery store, to correct the social ills within your community, when you refuse the opportunity to stand up and deal with things that matter, you die. We have an opportunity as a people to deal with things that matter. We need to wake up everybody. Teachers begin to teach a new way. Preachers begin to preach a new way. We generate almost $1 billion a year within our community, and yet we occupy the top rung in all of the poverty levels. All of the major health afflictions hit us hardest. What are we doing with our resources? Why is it that we don't stand up and address those things that matter? Montgomery is going to take over your school board. That matters. Jefferson County is going to depreciate your property, going to take your income, and going to legitimize the greatest robbery of individual resources and wealth in the history of the world in the Jefferson County bankruptcy. That matters. If you refuse to stand up and address those things that matter, so you keep breathing till you're 90. You are dead now. Absolutely useless to yourself, to your family, and to society, because you refuse to address those things that matter. All right. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night. I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. I'm in with Michael Hameen, the great Curtis Bell, and we have in studio a man that I've known for a long time. I won't go into. When I met him, he was fresh out of the military. Told me he was a black Indian.
Told me that too.
And then proved it. But now he's the Deputy Supreme Chancellor of the Knights of Pythias for the state of Alabama. We have to engage our mystic, our secret organizations, our fraternities, our sororities, our churches. We have to engage in dealing with those things that matter. Mr. Casey has come here tonight to talk about things that matter. W.A., welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Thank you, Richard Finley. Richard, first I want to say, take a part of 10 minutes. I want to appreciate what you have always done. When I met you when I first came to Birmingham, you was a banker, and you always been on the part of helping people. And a lot of times people don't appreciate it. And like in politics, when you help politicians, you pick up their friendship and all their enemies. And eventually, the enemies each time you pick up another politician, you pick up his enemies and only one friend. And you've been through that, and I appreciate you sticking to the course. But some of the things you were saying, and you always on point, but people got to understand in Birmingham that black folk, we have a black mayor, black fire chief, black superintendent, we have a black city. So what's the problem? If we think white folk come in and give us some money, we don't get power up, we crazy. You know, it's just not going to happen. But part of the problem is what the Pythians are, and we understand what the Pythians are about, Knights of Pythians, and who we are. And people don't want the society have put us in one barrel. White folks, there's Germans, there's Irish, there's Portuguese, there's Russians, none of white folks. All black folks, not black folks. In America, there are three kinds of black folks. There was Negroes, the mulattoes, and there was colored folks. And the makeup was, colored folk was black Indians. They was free. The Negro, 100% African, he was on his plantation. And mulattoes was on the plantation. But when they freed them, we all mingled together. But the Pythians play a great part in teaching capitalism to the mulattoes and the Negroes, which we've forgotten about. Matter of fact, the Pythians is we don't talk about it, is the parent of a lot of these organizations like the AK, the Deltas and stuff like that. We were grandparents. Check 1880. That trumps everything else. But we got to start preaching capitalism. Capitalism simply is it. I'm not doing it. There's some profit into it. Here in Birmingham, we have a great opportunity to control our own destiny, like you're always talking about. But what we really need is a bank. if you don't have money in America, you can't do nothing in America. It's like going to the fairground. No ticket, no ratty, no dollars, no Mercedes. They go hand in hand. And people say, oh, we don't trust each other. Only thing you can trust is numbers. Numbers is absolute. 2 and 2 on a scale from 1 to 10 is 4. When 2 and 2 equal 5, somebody can't count its inventory to hold 10 items. Mm-hmm. When 2 and 2 equal 3, then somebody stole one, bring it back. You know, it's as simple as that. So, and money is numbers, you know, and we got to understand how people manipulate us for their use and confuse us by destroying our history. You know, you got to know where you started and where you began. And we take the Pythians. Reverend Pettiford down there, he started the 16th Unity Baptist Church. At that church, he started 4 banks, which before that bank was a bank called Freeman Bank. He started a bank in Birmingham, and one in Anderson, one in Selma, one in Mobile, I think it was. But 4 banks he started. And that was what brought us into capitalism. Now, some kind of way, during the time of this, and we progressed back then, but some kind of way, we would let the opposition come in and destroy our economical base. We have to get back to the bank. Now, we have a bank here in town. We have a bunch of banks in town. The most vulnerable bank will be the Citizen Trust Bank. I ask you, Richard, you're a banker. If we could increase 1,000 depositors down there in a unified way, could they have said so on how the bank is being controlled and loaning money?
Exactly, and that's what we talked about earlier, is that, you know, you've got black businesses going around begging the SBA and the broader or dominant culture for capital investment. But we collect, you know, probably, you know, tens of millions of dollars every Sunday. We take them downtown and we demand nothing for those deposit dollars. We've got the Citizens Bank there. If on Monday morning half of the churches in this area went down, opened up an account at the Citizens, deposited their $5 or $10 million.
That's big money.
Yeah.
But we get 1,000 individuals with a minimum account down there. I believe we turn that bank into a community bank and we can invest back into community.
Well, we're saying the same thing. How you go about it is fine. Yeah, we could do that, and we need to do that because that is something that matters. Now, how can we convey that to the trustee board of the church that you can get a lot more done? You know, you complain about having to put burglar bars on your doors. You complain about the crime in your community. It is what you do with your money that impacts the quality of your life. If you were putting that money in a bank that was going to invest in a business in your community that was going to create jobs, then you would see crime reduce. You would see more young people seeing a future.
Crime is an industry. They make money on crime. They spend more money on crime on catching somebody, all this technology, when they could spend less money on crime prevention.
Well, if you believe it's a problem, then you buy the solution. And it's all about money. All I'm saying is that we need to turn that money within our community. We listen to the news media, the Birmingham News, and they say, well, there's crime in the black community. And then they come along and say, well, if we can get your tax...
Birmingham News, they sell that.
Yeah.
That's capitalism. What capitalism is, you name it. First you capture it, you name it. You claim it, you name it, you price it, then you sell it.
Yeah.
If you buy it, we sell you more of it.
And once you buy into it,
we'll sell you something else.
Yeah. And they take our tax money and build prisons.
And we sell it to you. And if you get you sick, we got something called antidote. We say antidote.
Yeah.
And if antidote don't work, and you die, then you get something called a funeral.
Yeah.
But if we do a funeral, we got $10,000. It's all about capitalism. And we got to understand how, and we can start teaching our kids, our smart kids. They go to school to create jobs for themselves, their family, and their friends. And then the white man does, and the Jews, and everybody else does it. But they've grouped us in one little set here and tell us that we're too dumb to know better. Because we don't practice, we practice racism, socialism, Marxism, religion, except capitalism. America's basis is capitalism. And these I'm a real estate broker, and I sell real estate. And Just recently, some Anthony Barnes, good man. He started with me in real estate. Business got so bad because money not circulating down here in Jones Valley. Barnes and we have merged our companies together for the good of the whole company. We got to start coming together collectively to make some dollars. Because you making more money, you're in trouble in America.
Yeah, and you're right. And I wanted to talk to you, briefly about. Well, that's about 2 years ago. I had a guest on named Paulette Horton, who was a registered nurse out of Mobile, who called me. I'd never heard of her, never met her before in my life. She called me because she saw my name associated with the Washington Douglas Economic Forum. And she called me to say that she had information on the assassination of Booker T. Washington. And I told her that I had planned to be in Mobile in a couple of weeks and where I was staying, and that I would love to meet with her and see her evidence. Well, out of that meeting, I began to realize she published a book called Death in 60 Days. In August of 1915, Booker T. Washington met in Mobile at a vacation spot there with about a dozen Caribbean businessmen, all of color.
He was not a Pythian, by the way. He was a Pythian also.
Well, and that's where I'm talking about how these mystic organizations tie in. But Washington met with these men, and he pitched to them his concept, his idea of the Tuskegee Industrial Complex. Coming out of that meeting, these men pledged $15 million to the Tuskegee Industrial Complex. Now, for those of you out there who are college folk, you know that when Booker T. Washington was at Tuskegee, he had Dr. Carver. Dr. Carver was the greatest scientist at that time, came up with the formula to create any number of products that Procter & Gamble and Kellogg's have used now to go on and be wealthy. But what most folk did not know, you hear the story that, the folk who came to Tuskegee Institute built their own buildings because they made their own brick. Well, all the bricks that they didn't use, they sold. In order to build buildings, you also needed timber. Tuskegee established a sawmill. All the lumber that they didn't use to build their buildings, they sold. So Tuskegee was a thriving business with construction products and materials at that point. Booker T. Washington had established all over the United States the National Negro Business League. He now had a commitment for $15 million in capital to go back and develop this complex. And I say this because I want our people to understand what you do in times and situations that matter. And had Booker T. not been assassinated, I want you to close your eyes and imagine what America would look like if, coming out of slavery, this entire multi-million person labor force started working for itself.
The black belt would be the gold belt.
Exactly. If these people had come out and Booker T was able to do what he could do, all of these millions of ex-slaves who had all kind of skills in construction and blacksmithing and plumbing and everything, all labor that had to be done, they had the skills to do it. Well, Booker T now had the capital. He had this meeting. Now, according to Paulette Horton, the night that they all consummated the agreement, they had a dinner, and that some saboteur had gotten to one of the servers at this dinner, and that Booker T. Washington was poisoned that night. The poison was a slow-acting poison because he left there. When he had the agreement, he went north. He met with Carnegie, he met with the Rockefellers, he met with the catalog people. those he was talking to about potential purchasers of the products that they were going to produce from the Tuskegee Industrial Complex. But the most significant thing was that before he left the North, he met with W.E.B. Du Bois. The popular media would have you believe that he and Du Bois were opposites or at odds. They don't tell you that Du Bois spent a year working at Tuskegee for Washington, understanding what Washington was going to do. And Washington said to him that these folk coming up out of slavery don't need to be involved in politics. I got to teach these folk how to work and own property and maintain and survive. And as we grow generations, then we will have an economic base, because we all know now that if you don't have money, if you don't have an economic base, you can vote all day long. If you don't have an economic base, if you don't have money, your vote ain't worth a damn. So Washington understood that at the turn of the century. So when he met with Du Bois to let him know, I've got the capital, we're ready to start the project, we're going to need educated black folk to put together the management and the marketing process, but the structure is already in place. And what the other thing that they don't tell you was that after the meeting with Du Bois, he lingered in the North because the poisoning was beginning to take effect. He got sick. He had to go into the hospital in New York. When he finally was released from the hospital, they couldn't do anything for him. You know, they were talking about how his system, and she had the medical records on how his system was failing. But on his schedule for the day after he died in Tuskegee was a meeting with Marcus Garvey. Now, you know, those of you who know anything about black history, if Washington and Du Bois and Garvey came together under the corporate banner of the Tuskegee Industrial Complex, imagine what the economic world would look like today.
Richard, you're a great historian. In our books of Washington, it even resonates back here in Birmingham. William Pettiford and Dr. Phillips, the first superintendent, used to visit Tuskegee regularly. And they came with the idea of building a Parker High School in that cornfield down there.
All of these people were disciples of Washington. A.G. Gasson, every business A.G. Gasson had was named what?
Well, he was a Pitian. He was a Pitian also.
Well,
Pitian raised him. He don't take credit for it.
I don't doubt that.
He was
but
Pitian all the way.
He named his, he had the Booker T. Washington Insurance Company, the Booker T. Washington. He had a tremendous influence wherever Washington went in this country. And they didn't have the internet. They didn't have television. They didn't have YouTube. Black folks.
Oscar Adams was a grand chancellor during that time, by the way.
All of these men.
Oscar Adams' daddy won Supreme Judge.
And see, that's how much we have lost, because all of these men during that period knew Booker T. Washington. They knew his philosophy. They shared his vision. We were coming up from slavery. We were a mighty nation prepared to lead the world. Booker T. had a world vision, and it is, it's no
capitalism needs cheap labor. You got people all the time is trying to disorganize us.
That's bad capitalism. You know, I tell people a lot of the enemies of capitalism don't understand that capitalism conducted by bad people comes out to be exploitive
for them.
But it's exploitive for them. But capitalism carried out by good people, capitalism that grows horizontally.
Christian capitalism. That's Christian capitalism.
Well, it's real capitalism. Capitalism,
all kind of capitalism, greedy, Russian.
But as long as capitalism grows horizontally, it is the best system ever devised. Now, when white people got into it, they took it vertical, so that you're gonna have somebody at the top exploiting everybody else, and then black people turned sour on capitalism because they saw how white people had created it to exploit the masses. Had it been Washington's plan, he had the National Negro Business League all over the country, so that the Tuskegee Industrial Complex would grow capitalism horizontally. It would spread out to all of our people.
Teaching it. I don't think we would stop. I think we would stop teaching capitalism. When they disorganized.
Well, the reason we stopped teaching it was because we lost control of educating our people. Once the dominant culture took over our education, then we became miseducated. That's when Carter G. Woodson, probably the last educated man during that period, did a study to document to our people that we were being misdirected, we were being miseducated, and
it's divide and conquer. Monsignor Walker was mission organization was she part of the pictures of Clancy's and Knights of Pythias. You read her background, it says she had a fraternity, a non-named fraternity, but that was basically was Knights of Pythias. But people have to fraternity is nothing. The other fraternity is the military. Yeah. And we're in the military, and all from the Boy Scouts is all in the fraternity. Rank as a prison, time and grade do count. He said military is fraternity because when a person in the military gives you order in combat, is do or die. For that 45 on the side is not for the enemy, it's for you. Yeah. It's the ultimate fraternity. And that's what we got to get back to, get stuff, doing stuff right in order. And a lot of people don't understand that to make money right, you do it right. And I strive every day. I do some things wrong. I try to strive to do things right, because right is 2 and 2 is 4 all the time. I can't make it 2 and 2 and 5, and 2 and 2 is 3.
All right, well, I've enjoyed it. We're coming up on our last 15 minutes. We're going to have this conversation again because we need to talk about capitalism because,
Let's put some money in that bank down there and try to turn the bank into a community bank, because that's what we need in this city here. Black people need a bank they can go to and make developments. You can't do anything without a bank. Right, Bishop?
All right. That's our message. W.A. Casey, we want to thank you for coming in to our community. What Mr. Casey is advocating to you tonight is that you put your money to work for you. If we stand behind the Citizens Trust Bank, put in dollars in there, take seats on the board, and make sure that we invest those dollars back in our communities, then we begin to utilize the capitalist system for our benefit. We can spread the wealth across the board.
Amen.
We can grow capitalism horizontally. And I tell you here every night, we're not here to create any leadership hierarchy. What we're here to do is to teach you to understand. And once you get an understanding of what's necessary for you to be prosperous, what's necessary for you to create the wealth to educate your children and carry forth in generations, once you understand that, you don't require leadership.
Preach.
You might require a little cooperation, but you don't need leadership once you understand. So in all of your getting, Birmingham, first get understanding. Thank you, W.
Amen.
Thank you, W.A. We appreciate you coming in. We're going to take a quick break, Curtis, and we're going to come back and wrap it up.
The views and opinions expressed on this program by the talk show host, guests, or callers do not necessarily represent the opinion of 900 Go WATV, its sponsors, staff, management, or affiliates.
All right, welcome in. You've been listening to Knowledge is Power. Our guest, Mr. Willie Casey, W.A., to most folk who know him, who is Deputy Supreme Chancellor of the Knights of Pythian. We've got any number of mystic, social, fraternal, military, church-based organizations within our community. And I know that probably all of you who listen belong to one or the other facets of these organizations. The things that we're talking about are things that matter to the future development of our people and our community. You can't slip this. You can't ignore this. Once you have knowledge, you have responsibility. Because no good can come from it until you exercise your responsibility to you, your family, and your community to implement the knowledge that you have. Mr. Casey says we need to take our deposits to a bank that we control, or at a very minimum have considerable influence with, so that those dollars come back into our community in the form of new houses, new business, greater economic expansion, jobs for our children. That's what banks do.
Richard, as W.A. Casey was speaking, I began to see the critical issue or issues. This demonic spirit of tribal arrogance that was described by Imam Worth D. Muhammad many years ago, back in the 70s, after he took leadership of what was then his father's organization, the Nation of Islam. It's a big issue. He talked about the colors and the mulattoes. We got the Pythians and we got the this and the that. It can't be we. And historically, he mentioned the Germans and so forth. Historically, their biggest battles were to get rid of the tribal mentality. The Italians were some of the last ones to get over this tribe idea and to formulate a vision of themselves as a united people. African Americans, we have to come to the same thing. To see our destiny is in our unity.
Yeah, and we have to do that not only as African Americans, we have to do that as people.
That's the challenge.
Yeah, one
of the 21st century.
One of the things that, and we go back to what we were talking about earlier. The mayor talked about the possibility of an NBA team, and all of the naysayers and the race haters and all of this, they come out and they talk about what we can't do this, that, and the other. Well, their thinking is largely racially motivated. If we can't come together as Birminghamians, if we can't share a vision of ourselves in this bigger picture of Birmingham, working together to make Birmingham the bright shining star of this region, then we're going to forever toil in this ignorance of separation that we toil in. And I know that you're listening out there in Mountain Brook, you're listening out there in Vestavia, you're listening out there in Hoover, and we're saying to you tonight, until you can come into some sense of who you really are in this broader picture, stop blocking and objecting and naysaying anything that comes from somebody who might be of a darker hue than you. They're just as much Birmingham as we're all Birmingham. And any place you go in Jefferson County, all of these 33, 35 hamlets that have been set up, the only thing that's recognized anywhere in the world is Birmingham.
When they go other places, what do they say?
They're from Birmingham.
Exactly.
So now buy into that, and let's see what we can create here as Birminghamians to show Oklahoma City, and Memphis, and Greenville, and
Charlotte. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Dr. King says if your foot is on another man's neck, you're not moving, and that's exactly what's been happening.
That's what's happening in Birmingham. They fear that black folks gonna get something, and they think that anything that black folks get is something that white folks should have had. Well, if white folks didn't have the energy and the ingenuity to get up and work for it and get it, then they shouldn't have had it. But anybody, regardless of ethnic background, skin color, whatever, if you've got the imagination, the education, the intelligence, the will, the desire, and the work ethic, you ought to be able to accomplish and achieve anything you want. And when we can be proud of whoever achieves, regardless of ethnic background or skin color, when we can embrace the concept of us all being part of Birmingham, then we can, we've got the natural resources and the location. Our airport is never closed due to fog or weather or whatever. It's a perfect place.
Where it's at.
You know, we are centrally. If you go look at a map, you know, we are centrally located in this region. We should be the transportation hub. And those of you who know me and listen to me, I have said,
railroad man.
We should be the central surface transportation hub for this entire region. Everything should come through Birmingham.
But Richard, you said it very nicely, like this gentleman. I was out years ago. I forget who I was campaigning for, one of the local managers. And I was out campaigning, and the gentleman looked at my literature, and he said, but you know, there's one problem with Birmingham. It's very provincial. Well, damn it, Richard, he's talking about tribalism.
Yeah.
He's talking about tribes. These provinces and these little hamlets, they're tribes.
Yeah.
And it's time for us to we need to have a crusade on getting rid of this tribalism.
When we are here, then are you from Birmingham? Well, no, I'm from Winona, or I'm from Dolomite, or I'm from Woodlawn. No, we're all from Birmingham, and we need to break that down, and all of us embrace the name and the concept of Birmingham, and what is good for the whole will feed all of the individual parts, but the whole has to be healthy.
This schizophrenic thing has to stop.
It has to stop. It has to stop. Whew.
If you're just tuning in to Knowledge is Power, you just about missed it.
You just about missed it.
And I'm going to get in my go tell that right now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you know, it has been a pleasure. We are attempting, and I'll say this as a self-promoting thing, we are attempting to structure this program and prepare it for broader broadcast. We are going to have a lot more individuals who are originally from Birmingham who live elsewhere as guests on this program, so that they can share with you from their perspective, having lived here, having gone elsewhere, and looking back. We're not going to focus so much on the local contribution, because I tend to think sometimes that we are so immersed in the problem that we can't see our way out, and we have a tendency to want to call in and attack one another, and that's just no good. That hinders our ability to move forward. We want to place before each one of you a higher reason or a higher reasoning, and we want to trust in God that when the light goes off in your head and when you see what is necessary for us to do to move forward as a community, when you take pride in being a member of this Birmingham community and you want to step up on the world stage and show the world that we have talent, we have ability, that we're going to lay down this racist crap.
Let's bury it.
We're going to bury it in it. Stop it now. We're just through with it. And we're going to allow the individual to rise up and shine and show whatever it is that they have within them.
Their true humanity.
Yeah, you know, I remember when this thing that Reuben started on, what do they call it? The star thing.
Yeah.
When that first started, the first 2 or 3 years, the talent came out of Birmingham.
205,
yeah. They came out of the 205, came out of Birmingham. The talent is here. Get out of each other's way. Stop blocking, stop talking about, stop castigating each other, and let's embrace this concept of a unified, progressive Birmingham. For those of you who occupy these hamlets and you don't like the color of the leadership here, the political leadership, and you block and try to trap and stop stuff from happening, stop it. Just stop it. If you don't want to participate in a progressive urban society, then move to the country. You're free to do that. But we have to create a functioning urban system and society here that will allow us to be as progressive and as accommodating as any competitive city within this region.
We got to grow.
We got to grow.
Y'all.
We got to create jobs. We've got to create the kind of economic wealth within this community that will allow the opportunity for all of us to live comfortable, successful
and
lives.
Healthy
lives and inspiring our children a future. We have to do something. When young people continue to do dumb things that they know will wind up with them being in jail, it is because they don't see a future in this community. We have to create that future. We have to change the way we are doing things so that people can embrace life and livelihood in Birmingham and in Jefferson County.
Go tell that.
You've been listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night. I'm Richard Finley. I'm thankful to have been your host. I want to thank my co-host Michael Hameen and the great Curtis Bell.
Pleasure.
We'll see you in 7.